got into where I was starting to use purple. I was going to try to conquer the use of purple. Purple's a very difficult color. It can be very dramatic, but if it's used incorrectly, it makes the painting look weak. So you've got to know how to use purple. Purple's really a touchy one. There used to be a color of brown at one time, turn of the century, called mummy brown. You ever heard of mummy brown?
Yeah.
You know, it's made out of ground up mummies. Isn't this thrilling? This is what my days have been comprised of before you were born. Let's see, it's 2/20/10. Okay, you're in business.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for coming. Thanks for coming all the way out here. I appreciate it, Fred.
You know that. I'd be here.
Yeah. How you doing, Josephine? Look at that kid. Bigger every minute.
You've got to line out the driveway, people getting in there.
Really? That's what I fucking want to hear. I hadn't talked to my father in like 15 years or something. He says, well, you turned out pretty good. I told him, well, you know, I didn't turn out to be a criminal or anything. He says, well, no, but if you'd been somebody like John Dellinger, you know, I'd still been proud of you. And I says, Dad, in my field, I am John Dellinger.
In the world, there is no madness. In the world, there is no shame. In this beautiful world, there are no hungry mouths to feed. In this fucked up, magnificent world, there's only fame. Only fame can take away all your fears. Come on and sign me an autograph with your tears.
I would like to be like a big rock star, and I'd like to be like real pretentious, like Salvador Dali, you know, and just I could act any silly way I wanted. That isn't rational to the way I have to make a living. If I put on those kind of airs, then I'd be such an ass. No one would take the work serious that I busted my ass to do.
In the world, you gotta be spectacular. In the world, you gotta be quick. In this heartbroken, wicked world, you got to be a rock star. In this belladonna hemlock world, you gotta get sick. When you're sick and save so many precious souls, come on.
I used to be a truck driver. You know, I used to be a short order cook. You know, a forklift operator. I herded cattle. You know, I've been in jail a bunch of times. You know, I am that person. Sister, run, run, sister, run, run, sister, run, run, sister, run, run, sister, run. We're gonna come out.
We're going to turn around.
We're gonna go on.
Go inside,
Come out the door.
You come up here.
We're gonna stand right in here and we'll wait till you wave, okay?
What, for what?
We're rolling now. Go in the
Okay,
house, turn
okay.
right around, come on back.
Hello, I'm Robert Williams. This is my wife, Suzanne.
Hi.
What? Do it again?
Do it again.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Robert Williams. This is my wife Suzanne, and this is our lovely American tract home.
I'm waiting for him to speak first. Should I say hi first or not? I can't figure out what to do here.
You say nothing until I say introduce you, and then you
Well,
say
then
hi.
walk with me. I don't want to stand here and have nothing to say.
Howdy, I'm Robert Williams. This is my wife Suzanne.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Williams. This is my husband, Robert. This is our beautiful tract house.
Yeah, that I'm
The
allowed to live
American
in.
dream. Oh, fuck you. You had to do that, yeah.
The success that me and Suzanne have had is because we haven't gotten in trouble. Getting divorced and borrowing too much money and having bankruptcy and, you know, all these things will drag you down, you know. My business of painting off-the-wall paintings is one of the least ways of success. I mean, I'm really sticking my neck out, but I don't stick my neck out in anything else. You know? Hello, I'm Robert Williams. This is my wife, Suzanne.
Hello.
And this is our lovely American tract home. Did I get American in that mistake?
No, that was perfect.
Okay.
Robert was really a historian, you know. That was one neat thing about being around him. We talk about different things, and he'd teach me a lot of things that I didn't even know about.
What's the Piltdown Man?
Did you ever take anthropology or paleoanthropology?
No.
Do you know anything about cavemen? Neanderthal man? You got a college education, don't you? You don't know anything about cavemen? Cro-Magnon man or Australopithecines? Do you know anything about those? No.
Not really.
I was afraid of that. In the 19th century, the late 1800s, Europe was abuzz over the finds of prehistoric man. The first most important fossils to be recognized were, of course, the Neanderthal man in Neander Valley in Germany. And then later, the French found the Cro-Magnon man. So England, not to be outdone, had to come up with something. So, ironically, an old individual found the fossils of a human skull in Piltdown, England. The fossils that they had indicated that they had what could be considered a missing link, the most intelligent of all the prehistoric man fossils. Immediately, the authorities in England jumped on the bandwagon and substantiated the proof of this find. But in 1953, carbon dating proved the skull in reality to be a complete hoax. But in that span of time from 1912 to 1953, a lot of supposition and bullshit was made about the Piltdown Man. And what I've done is I've portrayed this ideal Piltdown Man as chroniclers would have liked to have presented him. I've got in the central panel the Piltdown Man throwing a mammoth because he was superhuman. He had not only intelligence but enormous strength. Up here I've got a nice portrait of the Piltdown Man, and it says up here, "Old Piltdown Buzz, the man that never was." Over here I've displayed in cartoon paneling some satires on him. Here we have a little skunk in a devil costume indicating this whole thing stinks with a little bucket of fish saying something's fishy. Up here we've got a projected ideal of how intelligent the Piltdown Man was. In other words, he could actually conduct himself properly in a social surrounding. Okay, down here, we're portraying the Piltdown Man as he actually fit into human scheme of philosophy. In other words, if you look at the panoply of all our fantasy characters, he fits in there perfectly.
Was it really important, like, for you to educate your audience?
No.
The concept?
No. It would be nice to generate enough of a pictorial interest that people would investigate what this is all about.
So in a way, you're like teaching people whatever you're painting.
But I'm not primarily trying to teach people. I'm trying to find the people that already know to blow their minds. My mother always wanted a boy, and she says the reason she wanted a boy was because she always wanted a cowboy. Wanted her son to be a cowboy. And right out of the chute, man, I couldn't stand cowboys. I couldn't stand them. Later on, you know, when I had to work cattle, when I worked my granddad's ranch and I had to actually spend whole days on the back of a horse chasing cows around and running them 15 miles down the road to the railroad head and stuff, and it was like hard work. You know, I really hated horses. I had to get up early in the morning and go chase those horses down and put a saddle on them. Horses have no compassion. And horses just don't like people. You know, and the horses don't make good pets. I guess you can get horses and you can condition them to act like they're sweet, but a horse from the get-go, although you've broken it in, just doesn't care for you. And don't let anyone tell you that it does. Don't let young girls that love horses tell you how horses love back, because they fucking don't. It's like loving a cat, and the only thing that keeps that cat from not eating you is its size. You know, your sweetest cat in the world, you know, if it was big enough, would just immediately eat you.
Whoa.
My fascination as a child was not to be a cowboy, but to be a crusader. You know, I saw the 1936 Cecil B. DeMille movie of The Crusader, and it just flipped me out. As a child, I wanted to be a crusader. You know, I wanted to wear armor and ride a horse. You know, that was my calling. My mother was an Indiana Yankee, in contrast to my father being a Georgia cracker. We had a large cattle ranch, and we'd always keep the meat lockers full of the best beef. You know, my life was fairly secure, but I had to fit into a certain Christian parameter. The thing I reacted against was the constraint and the conformity that my Christian upbringing imposed on me. That was not my cup of tea. I always liked to use foul language and drink and raise hell, and I did it to an excess of what would be acceptable in that group. I had a little too much character to conform into that, and I would be offensive to those people. Because I've tried it. I tried to conform. Now, when I was young, I did, but I just realized that when I got older that I had to express myself other than just being quiet. Now, when my parents got divorced, it was an epiphany up the ass, an epiphany up the ass. Going from being well-to-do in a rich or upper middle-class family down to living with my mother on the streets of Albuquerque and living very desperately gave me a very good vista of what life's all about. My father taught me to be a gentleman and how to conduct myself around sophisticated people. From my second life as a street rabble, I really developed a sense of streetwise that I never had in Alabama. When I was young, my mother left me in the care of the landlady, a lieutenant in the Air Force. And she had a girlfriend. For a year or so, I was in the care of this lesbian couple. They was kind of the core of a whole liberal scene that was involved around the Air Force base. I'd already had enough male influence from my dad. He was like chronically macho, you know, really balls to the wall kind of human being. It was good that I didn't have my dad around too, because this was when I was like flaming and crying, coming out with this personality that was like completely diametrically opposed to his conservative values. I decided to go to art school in 1963 to Los Angeles. I really like Southern California. I'm not here by accident, you know, I moved here on purpose. I love to be around people with capability of having abstract, protracted imaginations. You know, the only people you could find like that in Albuquerque or in the Deep South or somewhere is like people that were like right on the edge of being criminals.
California, here I come, right back where I started from.
It was Los Angeles that started the hot rods. It was the West Coast that started the image of outlaw bikers at Hollister. It was the West Coast and San Francisco that started the psychedelic poster movement. It was San Francisco that started the underground comic book movement. It was the movie industry here and the pornography industry here that generated a certain attitude. Skateboarding started out here. Tattooing was very popular out here first, and that started with Don Ed Hardy. The West Coast was holding all the cards, and no one knew why. You go back east, you go back to New England and New York, and you're stuck in a world that seems like it's still being held on by Europe.
California, here I come.
late teens and all through the 20s, before the Depression, the auto racing world went to extremes in building enormous, high-banked racetracks. There were about 30 of these tracks built all over the United States. One of the early ones was built in 1920 right in the middle of what is now Beverly Hills, California. This track was located right where Wilshire and Santa Monica Boulevard meet right now. Some of the finest drivers and cars in the world raced on these board tracks. It was a very expensive affair, and the crowds that attended were 60 to 70,000 people. On Thanksgiving Day 1920, they were having a major race there, and there was a horrible accident that killed 3 drivers. One of the drivers was Gadsden Chevrolet, the brother of Louis Chevrolet. My purpose of this painting was to appeal to young people that this exciting world did exist right under their noses here in California and all across the United States. There were 2 forms of cars. This is a Frontenac with a flower petal nose, and that is a Duesenberg. Now over here I show 3 dead drivers coming up out of their graves. Tearing these cars apart is a symbol of doom, a gorilla-shaped monster that's done in abstract cartoon style, and both its hands and legs are twisting race cars, causing the deaths of Lyle Joles, Eddie O'Donnell, and Gadsden Chevrolet. And then I've got a poignant vignette here, a little tableau. We've got a flagman knocking 3 chessmen off a chessboard, indicating their death. Then we've got a green race driver in the form of a devil holding a trophy. And in his right arm, he's holding a nude young woman that represents Lady Luck. Green was considered the color that was bad luck, and after this wreck, almost nationwide green race cars did not appear in auto racing for more than 50 years. I'm very proud of my interpretive work, but I want that validated with the fact that I know every nut and bolt on these antique cars. I'm going to give the impression that I am responsible for every brushstroke on this canvas, and I know what I'm doing to justify the fact that if I get over here and I get breezy and I get emotional, I've got command of the whole situation.
Everything about what you do is like complete romance.
Well, yeah, I love the paintings. Do my own stretching, and they're done with tacks, and there's like all these things that people just don't do anymore, It would just kill me to see staples. Look at the back of the canvas and see fucking staples. Some idiots going clonk, 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 clonk. That would break my heart. Saving my hand for canvas pliers. 2 here, 2 there, 2 here, 2 there. Flows up to the corners. I do them about 3 inches apart, and when that's done, I go all the way around it, filling in the spaces. If I'd been accepted right out of art school, I'd have been pulled right down in the mire and never got anywhere. But I always had to fight off to the side and create my own audience and one thing or another.
Yeah, but now you have your own audience. You're still fighting.
I do have a very small arcane following. But my little following does understand exactly what the hell's happening, and they understand how I evolved and what effects and influences brought about the material that I do. When I came into art, cartoons were not considered art, but the cartoon is really the point of where you can do the most exaggeration and really test and strain your imagination.
Cartoon is a very peculiar and a very unique thing in American culture. The one thing that defined America at the turn of the century and to this day were the funnies. The so-called funnies invented a certain way of telling a story, which didn't really exist in the European tradition. It was a new way of telling a story.
When you're looking at my artwork, what you're looking at is you're looking at about 40 or 50 years of going back through EC comic books and Zapp comics and Hot Rod magazine. You're going clear back to pulp magazine illustrators. using that energy that's been denied for all this period of time has been lost off in abstract art.
In Robert's language, there are a cast of characters. You don't have that in most artists' works. His work is very rich with 1,001 sceneries and places and 1,001 different bizarre and perverse events. In a way, his work is a lot closer to the world of the magician. There's a bit of magic that's taking place there, but maybe more like a storytelling magic.
My name is Artie Shaw, and I used to lead a band. People are comfortable with the familiar. So if you get up on the stage and you act differently than what they expect you to, it's outrageous. They don't like it. In my business, a big thing happened when Charlie Parker came along. He changed the face of jazz. The seminal figure had been Louis Armstrong, and Charlie came along and changed that. What happened as a result was a spate of Charlie Parker clones. That isn't good. I think the important thing to recognize about a musician, a performer, and this applies to art as well, is that if you look at an art gallery and you know anything about painting, and across the wall, 50 feet away, there's a Modigliani, there's a Gauguin, there's a Cézanne, and there's a Monet, you can see who they are. You know without going near the canvas who painted that. I would recognize a Robert Williams painting almost anywhere, and that's pretty good right there. He's got his own thumbprint, so to speak.
The important thing is to come up with an idea that's never been come up before. I don't mind even a bad idea if it's never been come up with before.
No reasonable man could do anything like, say, Watson and Crick did with the DNA. A reasonable man could not do what Einstein did. You have to be unreasonable. You have to say, I don't agree with that. Everybody in the world says that's true. I don't think so. And then you go out and break all the rules. But you do know the rules. You learned them. Once you know them, you know what to do about it. Robert paints paintings that are sometimes deliberately offensive. Painters or artists are busily trying to explain to themselves what it's all about, what the world is all about. Robert's work speaks for itself. There's a picture of somebody doing something. You know what it is, and a lot of people can't stand it because it looks like something. He mirrors the present-day culture of America. He mirrors it pretty accurately. He paints a lot of things that are not particularly pleasant, but the whole world is not so pleasant.
I'm not accepted as a blue chip artist, and there's every indication I probably never will be.
Bob is intent upon success, and I've been trying to point out to him he's got success. He's very well known. He paints, he's got a good marriage, he's got a good life. What more can you want? But he's got that American thing. He's an American boy, and he's grown up in America, and we're told that you have to have success with dollar signs instead of S's. He's bought into that inferiority myth that the wiseacres thrust upon you, the critics who make people like Jackson Pollock. I would dare say that almost 99 4/10%, like Ivory Soap, of the owners of Jackson Pollocks can't tell you what they bought it for, except that it's a Jackson Pollock and it's worth a lot of money. I don't think that has anything to do with the art. Most people who are collectors don't care about art. They care about owning something nobody else can have because it costs too much. I got out of the music business because the audience would not support me anymore in the things I was trying to do. I finally found myself choosing between do what they want or do what you want. Any artist of any halfway reasonable meaning has got to arrive at the place where he does exactly what he wants to do. And whether people like it or not should be irrelevant. Somebody wants to find a success as a 90% loser. That's pretty good. 10% winner. In our day, that's a lot of winning.
In a nice little machine, I will go with my queen on an automobile honeymoon.
I got into hot rods because after the Second World War was over, you couldn't buy a car. All the cars are being melted down. They made tanks for them to go to Africa. They made like 5,000 tanks to get Rommel out of the African desert. All our Model A's and all our Model T's went into those tanks. Whenever I take a look at those tanks, I say, man, there must be like 20 Model T's in there, you know? There was no cars after the war. We had to go to the junkyards and dig out an engine here, a fender here, and just weld together what we could do, and everybody did that.
These are classic hot rods. Both are 32 Fords. This is a 32 Ford Roadster. This is a 32 Ford Coupe. These are what's referred to as deuces, part of my little American dream. A hot rod is really an abstract thing when you think about it. It's a far out thing. You're taking this old dead car that's really an antiquity that should either be left alone or thrown away, and you're completely gutting it, and you're putting a big power plant, so this thing is fast, if not much faster than anything else on the street. And it's dangerous.
The radiator used to blow up because they had these powerful engines where only a little four-cylinder should be. They had big V8s now. I spent a lot of time in high school in the garage putting these big engines into these little cars and welding everything up and making it work. The nice thing about hot rods is you can customize the hot rod to yourself. Like, I'm a pretty big guy, so I need a lot of seating room. So I'd always make the seats real big with a lot of leg room. I can make that car fit my little particular world and paint it the color I like. That's what hot rodding is. You do it to what you like.
Well, here's my two cars, the 1934 two-door sedan hot rod. Kind of a Ford, it's got a Chevy engine. The other car is a 1957 Thunderbird, which has basically been my everyday car since 1969 when I got it.
Hot rod baby wouldn't take another lady in the hot rod ride with me. She's my hot rod baby, she's making me crazy and it ain't no mystery.
I'd done rather well at City College, and I'd attracted a few little lady friends and stuff. But no woman that could carry an abstract thought, you know. Suzanne was a remarkable find, no doubt about that. She'd be walking along in these tight blue jeans with the big T-square, you know. People were fighting for her.
Really? What did you have to do to win her?
She had a following of gentlemen. Well, it didn't go smoothly. The situation didn't go smoothly.
Well, can you describe it?
No, it's not your business.
I wouldn't take another lady in the hot rod ride with me.
Suzanne is very well educated, and she is a person of tremendous interests. She's well read in astronomy, history, and anthropology, paleontology. Suzanne's a remarkable person. Suzanne is always leading me. You know, she finds things on television. She finds interesting things in life. She points things out to me, you know. Get an abstract conversation with Suzanne sometime. You'll discover you'll be way over your head when you start getting off on some weird shit with her, because, you know, she's a little thinker, you know, and you're not going to get too dirty for her. You're not going to get too far out. You're not going to get too mathematical, you know. It's, I'm fortunate to be in her company.
I think it was some bizarre inevitability that Bob and I would end up together. We had these two things in common that generally don't go together. We were both studying art already before we met, and we were both into hot rods already before we met. And at that point in time, those two things definitely did not go together.
Is Sandy here?
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to have Sandy back here, do you?
Well, you have to come outside. I bought you a present.
Really?
Yeah, it's a surprise.
What is it?
Come see. I bet you can guess.
I have no idea. Oh, I know exactly what the fuck it is. Oh my God. Oh shit, look at this thing.
Now we can go riding together, huh?
Oh, baby.
I hope you like it. It's a put together when Sandy built it.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it functional?
Oh yeah, it's great.
What does this thing cost?
This? Not even easy.
Can I ride it right now?
Yeah, it's yours.
Get your ride yours, Suzanne.
Open the garage.
All right, look at that, huh? My own Stingray. Huh?
Is it working?
Did it survive it?
Yeah.
Everything but my pride.
Yeah. Oh, man. Oh. Little boy.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you.
Knowing what's in the future, I have no plans, let's put it that way. I have no plans beyond driving my hot rod as long as I can and painting as long as I can and trying to help Bob be the success he wants to be.
So I was working on coming up with some ideas on one of these large paintings, and I come up with the theme of delusion. I wanted to do something with someone in history that really suffered from delusion. I went through a whole number of people, famous, very famous people, but then I popped in my mind, here's King Farouk. When I was young, my mother bought scandal magazines that were one-digit, socially below movie magazines. One character that kept coming back as a star in these scandal magazines was the King of Egypt, King Farouk.
Bring me the head of John the Baptist. I will have this world for a song. I got the money and you got plutonium. Bring on the fire, cause Pharaoh's got the bomb.
Went to the library and got everything I could find on King Farouk, and it was just as amazing as I remembered, more amazing. In reality, painting is a comic book story. In one panel, you got King Farouk's face, you've got a central vignette of a situation, another situation here, a stylized suggestion of an attitude here, some kind of preposterous presentation of his going-ons here. And then right here is the symbolic, surrealist image of Delusion itself. Here, okay, now you notice the writing on here. While I'm doing the sketches, I am verbally describing the painting, working the title in with the paintings. Coming around in a cloud of smoke is King Farouk in a red Cadillac. So I've got all the Cadillacs from 49 to 53 in here that have the same body stamps. There's no one picture in here that's that position. I don't just take this picture and blow it up with a lusograph, call it my painting. I get a set of dividers and I measure things off proportionally so I know what's what. This is called being a technical draftsman, part of what used to be part of art. This allows me to do airplanes and cars and machinery and architecture and anything else at different angles rather than just like many artists do, just lift what they can steal, make their entire fucking world their clip art.
Alright, so we had a couple good sentences in that, and let's say again.
My.
Oh my God.
Mine's a nice way to say fuck. I like all these real soft expletives like gee.
Yeah.
I find myself in my old age, I'm saying gosh.
Gosh.
Golly.
Gee whiz. Why are you saying that?
Why am I saying that? I'm afraid because I'm getting old. Unfortunately, I'm being attracted to shit like that, but I'll outgrow it. Becoming an artist was too much for me to deal with. It was too much for me to deal with. I had no peer group. There's no jobs for an artist that did what I did other than an illustrator. Things didn't look good. Out of desperation, I took this white-collar job as an executive aspirant for Weyerhaeuser Corporation. And I had to appear there in the morning with a suit and tie and deal with people that I wasn't suited to deal with. Work there in the day and at night, go home, take acid and cut up and try to get to work with a straight look on my face. And it was like obviously not going to work, So after 6 months, they fired me from there. I had to go back down to the unemployment agency, face all this again. And then when I got a job for Roth, my world just opened up. I just blossomed like a mortar shell,
I thought you were going to say a water lily.
You did, huh? A water lily.
Return to me.
Ed Roth had a phenomenal mind. I don't think people today realize how brilliant the guy was. He was so far ahead of his time, and he knew what people wanted.
I was looking for somebody full-time because I was doing all my stuff freelance to people. I need somebody there to direct them.
These very sensitive, trained artists would go down, they looked at property over, it was filthy with car parts and bikers and one thing or another, and they would just turn their nose up at it. Boy, it was just made for me. Think up your perfect job. Well, working for Big Daddy Roth, doing what I wanted for this amount of money. That's not going to happen. So it happened.
He was really a bedraggled looking person. He looked like he was out of the Skid Row, and his car was a disaster.
That car had a knack for people running into it.
The whole thing was dented in, one big dent.
One time I'm sitting there at a stop sign with Suzanne, and we're watching this lady come swing around, you know, and oh no, she's gonna run into us, just run right into the front of the car, bam! We're looking at each other's eyes.
When he came in and showed me this beautiful picture that he said he drew, I said, to my own mind, I said, this guy could never have drawn anything like that. Because, you know, he was really not the type of person that would paint a picture that gorgeous. So I told him, I said, you go home and you draw me a picture of a 54 Plymouth doing a wheelie with a rat fink in it. I said, you bring it back tomorrow. Because I knew nobody could draw that quick. And I thought, well, I'm rid of this guy. I don't have to put up with that kind of nonsense. So he did. He went home and he drew that. And the next day he came back and it was just another gorgeous picture.
When I took the job with Roth in '65, Ed Newton preceded me. He's the one that designed all of Roth's characters. When you see Ratfink and stuff, that's the guy that designed it. I replaced him because this guy went out on his own and I got Newt's job. That's how I got to be art director.
When Robert first started working there, I couldn't really figure out how I was going to deal with a person that had long hair. Because hot rodders, they never had long hair. They used to comb their hair in what they call a duck buck. It was always shaved in the back, and I had to deal with it. It was a big mental thing for me. Then when he started drawing his ads, the concept of these ads, I would have to come along and say, look, we can't do this gray area stuff.
Peterson Publishing sent a list of don'ts. I had a list of don'ts. No open wounds, no bodily fluids, no warts, no reference to mother, no reference to God, on and on and on. I was stuck with this whole big thing. The last year I worked at Ross, I did no drawing at all because the magazine said we won't accept any ads with this guy's illustrations in them. There's a thing about ugly and distastefulness that's really an aesthetic in itself, and that's always got to be played. I try to play the ugliest colors in the deck. Pink against dark green, purple against orange, things that hurt. When you look at them and go, whoa, whoa. And I'll just play that card, because, you know, man, that feeling, that cold feeling you get, like someone slipping an ice cube up your ass. When I was working for Roth, I met Stanley Mouse. Stanley Mouse was a competitor of Ed Roth's. He painted t-shirts at car shows too. But later on, Mouse went to San Francisco and became a full-fledged hippie bohemian, smoking dope and getting on the cover of Ramparts magazine and being quite the liberal. Well, I hit it off real well with Stanley Mouse. This was right when Mouse was starting doing psychedelic rock posters.
A lot of people don't like the word psychedelic because it reminds them of lava lamps or something that they did or didn't like about the 60s. It's actually a pretty good label for the art form.
Psychedelic drug taking in the early 60s wasn't like drug taking now, and it wasn't like drug taking before. I remember when LSD came out, people started getting LSD. That was like a wonderful adventure. That was an exciting expedition. You know, the word trip was not by accident. You know, the word trip had a validity. You were going somewhere that nobody had ever been. The thing about the second psychedelic art movement out of the 60s was it ran color and shape and intensity all the way to the top of the register. Pinks against purples and chartreuses against blues and whatnot, you know. That had never been done before. It gave license to doing things ridiculous. It was justified because it was done by people taking drugs and they were irrational. And from that evolved underground comics. So these underground California worlds were virtually inseparable. They were so akin, it's like the people that do artwork on the bottom of skateboards and the people that do wall graffiti are just so akin, it's unbelievable. There's a large facet of society, of human beings, that have no capacity for anything like oblique or abstract thought. And there's a good reason for this. It's because anything anomalous means you have a problem. When you're talking with someone and the person starts talking in tongues or talking incoherently, you're talking with someone with a problem. We live in a society of people that fear anomaly. Developing the abstract mind is something that's just really starting new.
Steer with your anus. Your pelvis turns the thing and your feet turns the thing. Your hands don't do anything to keep you balanced. I started when I was about 14. I used to be good at it.
When Bob and I got together, he knew how to ride the unicycle. I took that as a challenge. I had to learn.
I'm only gonna bloody myself once here, you know, so you better be at the grandstand. Here comes Suzanne. Look here. Look at this girl ride.
We used to live in Hollywood and we'd take LSD and get on unicycles and just ride the streets on unicycles.
When Suzanne rides, she flings her arms, and a cop car pulls up to us, and we're like on acid.
People don't know you're on acid. You know, you can just walk up to the police and ask directions and you're flaming, man, you know.
I ride over to the side of the door of the driver, the cop. And
walk up to the cop car with my unicycle in my hand and say, now, officer, don't tell me it's against the law to ride unicycles here on Vine Street, you know. And the cop just put back, you know.
He says, oh, no. We just saw her waving her arms and thought she was being assaulted. We laughed about that for a minute. Then I told the cops, I'll show you a few tricks. And then I did a couple of tricks for them. And they drove off. And we were just raving on acid.
Because remember, LSD wasn't outlawed until later. It was frowned on by society, and it was obvious it was going to be outlawed, but it hadn't been outlawed yet. And you're on new territory that your generation was the first to walk in. So it was a real thrill.
Did you get that on camera?
1968, a musician with the Holy Modal Rounders named Peter Stanfield showed me a Zapp comic. And this was Zapp #2, and this ignited me.
Walk it on, hippies do their thing. Hippies call it STP. Trying to be the next week rip-off king.
My first appearance in Zapp was in Zapp 4 in 1969. There were 7 artists in Zapp, so we set kind of our own style. Me and Victor Moscoso, Rick Griffin, and S. Clay Wilson were visual artists. Gilbert Shelton, Spain Rodriguez, and I guess Crumb to a certain extent, took a great deal of pride in story structure. There was a psychedelic drug psychosis that we really enjoyed exercising. All of us had fine arts backgrounds to a certain extent. This mixed with the comic book world that we knew was plant food for us.
Hippies call it STP.
You look at these things now, you don't think anything about them, see, because they're out of context. They're just nothing now, they're out of context. But when that stuff hit, it's just like in 1953 when that first Mad comic come out, man. I was a little kid and I about shit my pants. I thought, whoa! You know, it was just unbelievably far out. The word mad was not a joke. It bordered on a mental illness. It played on psychosis. I realize there's some people in New York that do these comic books, man, their mind is just way out there. I want to be like that. I had that same feeling when I saw that first Zapp comic, and this is flipped. These people have no consideration or care about the social mores. I thought that is so bitchin' that they would dare do something that's published and printed, that's circulated, that's so flipped out and so disrespectful to the fucking society we're in. You know, it was such a beautiful, wonderful virtue. In 1969, and I needed an early 30s style cartoon character that would have all the characteristics of a traditional, already established Max Fleischer or Walt Disney character. But the thing with Coochie Cootie was, instead of a child's character, he was an adult cartoon character. He dealt in a world of sex and violence and jealousy and greed, and he had all the shortcomings that most human beings have, bordering right on being a felon.
prisoner made this in solitary confinement.
Was it a friend of yours or was it?
I've never met the guy in my life. And it's like a letter and stuff.
Do you have the letter?
Well, sure. Dear Mr. Williams, how are you? Fine, I hope. My name is such and such. I am currently serving time in a Texas prison. I have been a fan and admirer of you and your artwork for 30 years. I make paper sculptures here in the cell. I am sending you one I did based on your drawings and paintings of Coochie Cootie. I made the frame with copper wire and used pulp from newspapers. I hope you enjoy it. P.S. Here is a good luck devil's head you can hang on your rearview mirror of your hot rod or something. 2 sculptures enclosed, and then it gives the prison number. This is a nice letter, huh?
See the skull, the devil head?
The devil head. See?
This is Pleiku, 250 miles north of Saigon, the air base that was ripped by Vietnamese communist guerrillas.
You have to understand about underground comics. They were born in a very tense and restless period of time during the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was the very critical changing point for America. To understand the Vietnam War, you had to understand the United States in the 50s and early 60s. It was a very constipated, constrained society we lived in. It had definite rights and wrongs. There was a lot of bigotry, and society was very, very inhibiting to people with imagination. When the Vietnam War comes, this brewing underground world of drugs and whatnot that had been suppressed immediately raised to the top in the form of a bohemia. About 1967 or 68, for the first time in the history of humanity, there was more young people than old people. Now you take that for granted now, but then it was one big changing point. So I am a member of the first youth movement. It was my generation that realized, hey, we have power, and we're going to use that power to stop that goddamn war. Almost all of the youth culture, in one way or another, did something in the direction of showing their resentment to the U.S. government after the late 60s. It was, in my mind, a serious cosmological model. I saw, and I still to a certain extent presume, that the physical nature of the universe is like a Mobius band, and the inside is the outside. There's not like an end of the universe, because it's inside is the outside. I did a painting called Riding a Dead Horse with a Dream Within a Dream. I not only entered the 4th dimension of time, but I entered the 5th dimension of split dimensions. 5th dimension, you can get in and suggest situations that can't be categorized, like 2 situations simultaneously that can't be in the same place. This very vaguely describes 5 dimensions. So you've got a receding window back here suggesting a situation, and it transcends over here. So this is like a real elementary suggestion of 5 dimensions. You get off into that foggy area of things going through things and whatnot, and you lose your audience pretty quickly. You think you know what I mean, like I think I know what I said, right? Always, when I worked for Roth, I was always focused on becoming a noted painter and being able to make a living as a fine arts painter, doing what I did.
That was the day job, which was wonderful, but he'd come home at night and he'd paint all the time.
I'd never quit being a painter.
But that's when I realized you just could not get paintings in print or in front of anybody. There was just no gallery or any form of venue that would deal with these paintings. There was no publications that would deal with these things. I was absolutely out in the cold. The hot rod world was very generic boys' world, like the average Joe world. It had a crazy streak in it of art, and that was fostered by Von Dutch.
At the time, I knew who Von Dutch was, and he was kind of the guru or the phantom figure. He was such a rebellious character that most people were even afraid of him.
Ed Roth styled himself after Von Dutch. I had studied fine arts. Roth hired artists. They explored all facets of the non-accepted arts like sign painting, flame painting, and girly drawings.
I actually met Ed Roth back in the 50s at the hot rod shows, and when I opened the museum, the car museum, which was Movie World Cars of the Stars, I hired him to be the art director. I put this little nucleus of a collection together that revolved around their world, which is mainly hot rods and custom cars. Ed Roth was actually the guy that laid out my museum. And one day I said, Ed, who would you think is the best artist living right now? And he said, oh, without a doubt, it's Robert Williams. I said, God, I'd love to meet the guy, you know. The painting that really caused me to meet him was this, I always call it the eyeball painting. I think it's called something Retinal Delights. The eyeball painting just blew my mind when I first saw it. To me, it's still one of the phenomenal pieces of art out there. When it comes to that movement, what you call it, lowbrow art, I guess that's what they call it, he's the guy. He's the captain of that whole movement. Without him, all these other artists would not even be doing that kind of art.
He's actually opened the door to a new art form being accepted into the mainstream, and I think it's huge now.
What he's done with his painting is open up avenues of kind of weirdness and possibilities of expression to a lot of other people to give them courage to develop their own work and take it from there.
He opened the portal for probably hundreds of people to have a successful career in the arts.
Without exaggeration, I'm basically an artist because of Robert Williams. He liked my paintings and put one of them on the cover, juxtapose, and that's what launched my whole fine art career. He's done that for a lot of artists.
I don't think people really realize how much effect he had on the culture of the United States.
I got to know him over the years and got to know Leonardo too. Leonardo actually is named after Robert. Originally, Leonardo's stage name was Lenny Williams. And we picked that out just because it was Robert's last name. Robert would always say, "Oh, I'm his hippie godfather, that's why I am," stuff like that.
Okay, I put a little blue sometimes, a little Prussian blue or ultramarine blue in my black. It makes it blacker than black, you know, it makes it a real cold, dark black.
I'd always realized to do real tight, well done, interesting paintings, it's going to take more than a normal sacrifice.
If I could live 3 or 4 lifetimes and I had a real tough pain threshold and I could really concentrate, I would do nothing but super cartoons with a 1 hairbrush and a magnifying glass, because that's like beautiful jewelry. It's like creating diamonds.
There is a psychopathic characteristic in doing detail work.
It's been long referred to as being anal retentive. But in psychiatry, it comes to there is actually no such thing as being an anal retentive. The term anal retentive has an opposite side. If you refer to somebody like me as an anal retentive, there is this other side called an anal repulsive. In other words, someone that paints real loose instead of tight, and they continually express shitting their pants by doing a brisk, breezy paint job. You live in a time in history that if diamonds were just discovered, no one would see the beauty in them. Diamonds had to be discovered 400 or 500 years ago for people to see beauty in them. See? It was later that they discovered diamonds were like real hard and could be used industrially. If diamonds were found today, they would be utilized strictly for their industrial value, not for beauty. See? Beauty is a thing that come from another period of time. We appreciate diamonds and flawless diamonds now from something from the past. That would not happen today. People don't see little beautiful things. See? That's out of our culture now. It's just like people don't go up to a painting and look at the little beautiful intricacies anymore. That's kind of a passé thing. It is a reflection on my emotional involvement too, because if you see an old illuminated manuscript and you see that the armor seems to be right, that means this pathetic little scribe, this little artist that sat there and did it, must have indulged himself in some kind of appreciation for the armor, you know. So it's just like me painting that grill on that Cadillac. I'd have to have some personal appreciation for that Cadillac. I mean, I want that goddamn Cadillac to read Cadillac. I had a hell of a time with the grill on it, but I pulled it into shape. I might have had one of those compulsive mood fits of not getting things just technically right. That's why people copy photographs. You know, it gets rid of those fits. I'll work on a thing and I'll get the drawing just right, and then I'll come back the next day and I'll look at the drawing and like the hands all fucked up and the face is at an angle and the geometry and the eyes are way off, and it's like, what the fuck was wrong with the guy that did this? What was you thinking yesterday, you know? There's a certain amount of enjoyment. Well, enjoyment. Well, I like sitting in front of the television and drinking root beer is what I like to do, you know, but that's not getting the work done. It's a compulsion. It's exercising that compulsion. I did a number of very fast, brief paintings I call zombie mystery paintings. I dealt primarily with gratuitous sex and violence because it had energy. It visually antagonized you. The women didn't take to that.
Oh, Bob, you dog.
I found that I had great success showing at underground galleries like La Luz de Jesus and 01 and Psychedelic Solution and whatnot. I was greatly rewarded with a following almost instantly, and I generated quite an audience and a group of buyers.
1, 2.
I've got a fistful of love, a five-finger romance, no caress of your glove, and no recon in your pants.
I paint women that are easy read beauties. I can't stand big tits, but I put big tits on them because that's easy read. It would take a person with a much more refined taste and investigative powers to understand the little small breast. See? But if I got the big fucking butter bags, I mean, the story's written right there. On the other hand, the ass is like a little more fundamental. It's like very, very primitive. You go to the back of her, and you have to have like a way of what is the back of her, and the back of her is the big part, you know, the big smiley part that looks friendly.
It's time to nix this fistful of love.
The very first art ever created was naked women. You know, you look at the little Venuses and shit, you know, they're nothing but ass and tits. Some of them are lucky if they have heads. If you look at the Venus of Willendorf, you turn that thing around, it's got an asshole. It has no head, but it's got an asshole. You know, it's like we're saying something here. There's some detail talk in this thing, you know. There is no face on the Venus of Willendorf. The Venus of Willendorf is like a Playboy magazine, you know. That's a Playboy magazine 15,000 years ago. You
you look at it on an astral level, the beautiful expanse of the Orion Nebula and all these things, you can't even start to comprehend how immense and how dynamic and how beautiful those are. And you know, you can be looking at a telescope with one eye, man, and a girl goes by with a nice ass, and man, the Orion Nebula is nowhere, you know, it's just, it curls up like a pork skin, you know. But then you think, well, an ass that's too perfect is like not good either, it's too stylized. It's like the guy that likes the big titties, you know, like the big titties are like for an idiot. You know, it's like the perfect ass is like kind of like for an idiot, like a little bit of cellulite, you know, it really looks good. The more prominent I got, the more my sexual material was catching criticism, and the feminists started really getting on me.
It exploits women. I'm sorry, the titles don't make it any more amusing.
I endured about a decade there of being punching bag for a lot of people that wanted to point out what not to do.
I'm sure down the line when you have guys doing paintings of real heavy-duty graphic sexual shit and putting it in galleries, he's not going to be considered a sexist.
I even hate the word sexist. Humanity is sexist. There's women and there's men, and they're different sexes. And we have to get along with each other.
I don't consider Williams a misogynist at all. He loves women. He makes them strong, fearsome, and beautiful.
He is not a sexist person at all. Not at all. Not in the finest sense of the word.
Women on enchiladas and who are obviously supposed to be portrayed as Latina, it's really obnoxious.
The girls on food is a combination of your libido and your necessity to stay alive. I don't want to go into that too much because then it would expose me as like really a pervert.
I guess that's sexist, right? Anybody who's too horny and you know, puts it in their work.
I think it's really offensive.
The most interesting and beautiful thing that exists in human culture is a woman, and that's what I'm attracted to, so, you know, I'm guilty. I was talking to that director, Herzog, you know him? Werner Herzog? He says he hates cinema verite.
That's fine.
Huh?
That's fine.
It's okay.
The sun went down and all the lights went out in Blackfoot, Tennessee. There upon the steps of St. Eulalie, as Mama died, bring me. So Sister Isadore took up the chore of raising up this child. She said, son, stay away from carnivals, and released me to the wild. So now I ride.
As a young man in my mid-teens, I had the opportunity to do a small stint in a traveling carnival. I realized how everything was just designed as a facade to get people's money, and rather than being resentful, I started developing an appreciation for this and saw a certain aesthetic in the fact that they would test the limits of what people could tolerate. If you see it on the outside, you see this gypsy romance, you know, but in reality it's like very desperate people, a lot of them on drugs, a lot of them are just like goofballs that would do anything for money.
Woe is me. I was once ran through Virginia, had my crimson headlights on. Madam kicked me in the kidneys, spilled me gently from below. So tell the children that were coming, tell the gypsies hit the road. For I have joined the traveling carnival and got my bucket sold. I never slept.
There's a certain comic arrogance in my paintings, and a lot of people don't like me because of that. But I think I picked that up from the carnival art. It's like carnival art challenges you, like just how stupid are you, you know?
And woe is
Welcome back to The Week in Rock.
Hi, I'm John Norris with the news.
On the group's 1987 debut album is still stirring up controversy.
People look at that sexist or anything. I mean, I guess I can see what they're saying.
Sensationalistic work has attracted many fans, them Guns N' Roses. But his painting on the inner sleeve of their Appetite for Destruction caused a recent controversy in California. A feminist group branded it a glorification of rape.
Glorification of rape.
I gotta have it.
Wasn't good enough, right, when we took it off the front cover and put it on the inside. You know, that blows. They can't do anything about it.
When these people originally approached me, they were unheard of, and I considered them to be just another punk rock band that comes to my door wanting artwork.
It was a postcard we found in a store in Melrose. I think Axel turned me on to it.
I loved the picture, but I kind of submitted it as a joke because it was so outrageous. And I was like, you mean you want to use this? I was like, this is great. So then we just went for it.
They even used the name for the painting was Appetite for Destruction.
I love the artwork and the talent that was involved in it. And I think that since it was such an outrageous picture, that like the skill and the talent involved in making it gets overlooked.
I gave them my best wishes, but I warned them that this was going to get them in a lot of trouble, and they got them in exactly the amount of trouble I thought it was going to get them into.
A lot of people don't have anything else to do, you know, so they get into censorship or whatever.
This is when Tipper Gore was still around. And not that she's not anymore, but during her heyday.
The family organizations started raising hell, and school organizations, and then churches and whatnot.
That was when, at least for me personally, I first grew up to the whole media thing. When I first had to sort of sit there and go, really? You know, I'm with my bottle of Jack Daniels and the whole thing, and it's going, you think what about us? You know, we're such a nice bunch of guys, you know, go.
I don't really know what to think about censorship, but it's like we seem to be like, you know, knocking down the doors every time they censor us, we get past it, so we just don't give up.
What we did was we just said, you know what, fine, fuck it, and then we took the cross thing that we had on the inside sleeve, put that on the cover and put the real painting on the inside.
This thing sold 14 million records, and a third of those records, this was the cover, and the other 2/3, this was on a sleeve inside. And I let them have it for nothing, see, almost nothing. And that was one of my lesser business endeavors, but it did get me quite a bit of publicity.
A lot more people, I think, are turned on to Robert's artwork than were before, and I'm really glad to be a part of that.
If you don't like us, don't listen to us. If you don't like him, don't look at his art.
It's such a waste of time, and people spend so much time, like,
it's stupid.
Dwelling on that.
Appetite for Destruction record is people's moms are buying it. Okay, so it's no longer that much of a controversial issue anymore. It's like it's accepted. And so we just turned around and put it back on the cover and just didn't say anything, and we haven't heard word one about it since.
Take what you can, take what you can, take what you can.
When I come up with Juxtapose magazine, I wanted that. Here is an art magazine that's flipped. I think I did to a certain extent. If you look at Juxtapose and you compare it to Art News or Art Forum, you realize there's a whole different psychosis there. The important thing to an artist is to get publicity, and the best publicity is write-ups in magazines. You have to remember that write-up on Jackson Pollock in Life magazine made him. That one big write-up in Life magazine made Jackson Pollock. So you can see the importance of getting publicity and write-ups.
At the time, you got to remember what existed. You know, there was Art Forum, Art in America, Flash Art, Art News, Art Issues. It was kind of weird because you would go to the magazine rack and you look through all the same month, they'd review all the same shows. It was all like one big magazine disguised as 20 different magazines.
When we first started doing Juxtapose, I went to all the underground artists that I knew. I went to Crumb and S. Clay Wilson and Victor Moscoso and Spain Rodriguez, and said, well, I'm coming out with an art magazine that deals with underground painting and underground art. And I got agreements from all these artists that they would help.
He really was trying to bring other artists along with him, because he didn't really want to be the only one. He wanted it to be an art movement.
Almost every person has a hunger for some kind of art, like someone's making crafts or they're drawing pictures, and there's a certain like human nature thing. So everyone has this art urge, and it's just how does it get stifled in every person? It starts in kindergarten with the teacher saying that's awful, and then you really get stifled in college because all those people are trained to tell you whatever you're doing is wrong. So then when they find a magazine that champions all the wrong art, they're going to subscribe to that, they're going to buy it, they're going to get addicted to that.
I started a magazine called Coagula, and it was a big middle finger to the art world. I came straight at them and critiqued the entire culture of the art world. I trashed the big names. When Juxtapose came out, it was a totally different animal. It was actually saying the art itself, the end product, not the people, not the culture, are the problem. We want to take over the art world.
If you look at, say, Art Forum, like the pictures would be small and the writing would be big, and it'd be all about the writing. And then if you would read the articles, they'd be heavily footnoted, and they would quote all these philosophers. So it was really about the art historian proving to you how smart that they were. If you have a PhD in art criticism, you can't understand Art Forum. But, you know, between that and someone that likes art, you know, there should be a step to that.
The secret to Juxtapose was the art needed very little rationalizations to be accepted as art. The art world had thrived for 40 years on the more rationalizations that the art needed, the higher up the food chain in the art world it went. Juxtapose completely inverted that. And now it's been about 15 years, and it's almost like we can now see how deep the crater was of what it destroyed in the art world.
Since the minute it hit the stands, it took off, it did really good, until it finally did become the #1 selling, for sure, above and beyond any other art magazine, of all the other art magazines.
Fab Five Freddy told me everybody slide, DJ spinning, I said my.
Rather than do just a bland portrait of Debbie Harry, I was interested in some kind of psychosis to give the picture some substance. What I've got here exhibits a lot of neuroses, so I don't want you to think that Miss Harry is like a, you know, an involved lunatic or something like that. This is like just particular neuroses that I had to extract from her after a long conversation. Up here we have a cartoon characterization of Debbie Harry. Now, she has a phobia of being bound up and trapped under in a triangular shape. This has been an emotional situation that bothered her in dreams in one thing or another.
The central theme was the Ted Bundy experience.
She told me in the early 70s she was coming home from night clubbing at 3 or 4 in the morning by herself, walking the streets of New York, and a little white car pulled up to her and offered her a ride, and she flagged this character on.
This guy kept coming back and offering me a ride, and I said no. And he came back the third time, and I said, okay. And I got in the car, and the interior of the car had been totally stripped. It was just like the frame of a car. And I was sitting in this frame of a car with the windows rolled up with a guy that smelled really bad, and I couldn't get out.
She looked to the side of the window there, noticed it hadn't been rolled up all the way, and she reached through the window,
Squeezed my arm out that little crack in the window, and I opened the door from the outside.
popped the door open as the car was going around a corner, and tumbled out on the street.
I was sort of hanging from the door like this, and he spun around, and I flew out into the road in the middle of Houston Street.
And later she learns that she was a virtual prisoner to Theodore Bundy, the serial murderer.
I don't have these dreams anymore.
Since you started the painting?
Yeah, and now I have also stopped aging. Yeah.
I don't pull out no stops or anything, but on this particular painting, I had Miss Harry's dignity to think about. I did have her keister showing here, say.
I really wouldn't have minded being portrayed sitting on a taco with no clothes on, but Robert's the gentleman.
You bought that painting, why? Because it was cheap. Dirt cheap.
I think I just bought this painting. I still owe the money. The reason I bought this painting was because it was the last one, and I didn't get to pick any of the others.
What part of this painting do you like the best?
The guy's dick, you can barely see his little green penis hanging down.
I like the fact that you painted me in the shell here. You notice the whiskers. I don't know if you can see in detail.
You can see there's a little bit of effluvium here extruding from the corona.
This is Oscar Wilde, by the way. You can see the fairies getting shot here, which is a nice image, the fairy getting the bullet hole. Coochie Cootie is dead on the floor right here, and he's kind of cute.
The individual that's purchased the painting is, I'm afraid, bought the painting for the wrong reason. He's seen things in the paintings that it wasn't emphasized.
Some people, you know, they'll go like this on a painting and they'll sell it for $500,000. But Robert is a craftsman, you see.
There is articles in here that suggest vulgarity, but these aren't the things to concentrate on. And I think Mr. Haynes has jumped to conclusions in this purchase.
I asked you, I said, what time do you get up in the morning to paint? And you said...
About 4:15, 4:30.
He gets up at 4:30 in the morning to start painting. Now this is an inspiration to me. Ever since you told me that, now I get up at about 9 in the morning and I start and I start writing.
I'm doing this article for Juxtapose magazine, and I really have to summarize Robert. All of us, we want to think, yeah, I'm the greatest, and you want somebody to say, yeah, you're just as good as Michelangelo. Well, that's what I intend to say. I want to look at the Sistine Chapel and some of the Robert Williams paintings as having more in common than not having things in common.
I was working on a set of 4 sculptures. I named the set of 4 sculptures Eloquence Redefined, because you'd sure as hell have to redefine eloquence to tolerate these. Okay. There's 4 of them, and they just selected 2. The first one here is an ecology statement. We have this brute creature here with a blowtorch heating up the world, referencing global warming. He's blind, so he can feign innocence. It's got this brute strength like mankind, all this energy, but he's going in the wrong direction. And then the second one here is the corker. The name of this one is A Diamond in a Goat's Ass, and what this refers to is something that's overdone, a lyrical, poetic euphemism for pretension. I am the sculptor, but I work with a crew that does the sanding and faceting things together and whatnot.
Do you see yourself as a blue-collar worker?
Yes, a journeyman. There's an apprentice, a journeyman, and a master. I'm a journeyman.
You're still a journeyman?
I can do the work. That's a journeyman.
And how long till you were a master?
Well, that's a supposition for someone else to say. This should be ready for Halloween at Tony Shafrazi's Halloween night opening. Right in the middle of the art world, New York, these things are coming about. You know, a diamond in a goat's ass. You know.
Oh, they'll love that.
Yeah.
What are they going to say about you 50 years from now? When they look back, maybe they'll call it the Juxtapose movement, maybe they'll call it the School of Robert Williams. What are they going to say?
Matt, you've honored me by saying, what are they going to say? I appreciate this. They're probably not going to say a fucking thing. There's younger artists that have leapfrogged me that they're going to be saying about these guys. And then more intelligent people are going to investigate the movement they function in and realize, hey, it was like this real intelligent fucking guy that did this really great work. That's what I'm hoping for. When you start getting into real detailed artwork, it starts getting obsessional. Work this area out, and this area has to be worked out. The resolution on the thing starts developing before you. And the thing about being an artist is you're always, like in a chess game, 10 steps ahead of what you're doing. You want to try a little while? The onlooker doesn't realize this. You know, they're looking at what you've done there. What you're doing is you're way ahead of it. You're drawn out in this obsession of this visual image. You're not in the picture, you're around the picture. The picture is actually you. I don't want to feign the insane genius artist like Van Gogh or anything, but there's like a emotional tie into this stuff that's
pretty radical to define, you know. It's a need. It's like a real need. You have to come to grips with yourself, and you have to come to grips with what other people think, and you have to come to grips with what you can actually fucking do. See? What you want to do and what you actually can do, you know, are sometimes a broad distance. Shit, I wake up every morning so fucking jealous. That's the only way I get up. It's not caffeine, it's jealousy that gets me up every fucking morning.
Which part of this do you enjoy the most?
The finish.
The last?
The day I sign it. The day the son of a bitch is out of my hair. I always done the paintings, you know, I always thought, well, since I'm nobody doing the paintings, and I'll probably never be nobody, I'm left with the total freedom to do something really bitchin'.
Tonight is the opening of the Whitney Biennial in New York, and Robert has finally been included. He's now in the canon of contemporary art. The Whitney Biennial is the ultimate arbiter of which artist is in, and the artists who don't get in are out. And yet, he's going to be an outsider and not attend the Whitney Biennial opening because his opening's here at Cal State Northridge. The great artists reflect their time in hindsight. The trendy artists, yeah, they get the headlines. The museums buy their art. 30 years later, that stuff's in the attic if it hasn't been deaccessioned. When they close the book on the 20th century, the great painters are going to have to compete with the lines of Picasso, the color of Matisse, and the thoughts of Robert Williams.
You know, I have a daughter who's 14. Somehow, like all these kids, they like the Jonas Brothers in her school, and these girls are going crazy for it. And so somehow she thought that music kind of sucks. And so she like figured out, I'm not sure how, but that if she's going to listen to music she likes, it's going to be the Beatles. So then I'm like seeing the Beatles, like now as an adult, you know? I go, man, the Beatles are a lot like Robert Williams. They were young, they had a new message, it was edgy, and it was really good. Our whole music world was completely changed by the Beatles more than anyone else, and that sort of gets discounted, I think, in history. Just as Robert Williams gets discounted. Everyone takes for granted that all these other artists are so great. But he's the Beatles of the lowbrow. He was the breakthrough guy. All the art before Williams was one thing, but all the work after Williams, starting right with him, that was all better.
Robert, are you happy?
I am happy. I am happy.
She got the ear to the ground, visionary style, locomotive rock star pain. She got a lovely left brain. You can tone a girl like her steps in the room. She got a pearl shine slipper on her right foot, kicking like a teardrop, singing in the 4-star rain. Nobody feels like flames at the tips of her fingernails dipped in snow. See you soon. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Hot Rod Bob, Hieronymus Bob is the tallest pilot. Was Betty Bob, is that the Bob? Robert Williams. Oh, he worked at the carnival. He's a geek, I think, in the carnival. Kind of walks like this. He does his jungle walk. Kind of squawky voice. Got a little hands, kind of dangle like that. Kind of chicken-breasted guy with a hunchback. That Robert Williams? I don't know him.
She's stealing cash from the counter, slips it down her leather pants for the man with his lips up, girl. Made a call to the woman on the runway with
You know, people were running me down for my Red Sox. Red Sox are very hard to find. Usually I have to find women's high heel socks. Nothing accents blue suede shoes like Red Sox.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. such a tramp, gonna make you stand on.
My name is Spain Rodriguez. I'm an old friend of Robert Williams. Therefore, it's what I have to report about Mr. Williams is very sad for me. Robert Williams is a practitioner of Salvador Dali's secret masturbatory techniques, which are so debasing, so degrading. When these are exposed to the world, all those Hollywood friends that he has will just be utterly repelled and shocked, and they'll see what a squalid reprobate he really is.
And how does it go? It goes tramps in stereo, tramps in stereo.
People collect anything. I don't know if this relates, but I saw a guy in LA that collects vacuum cleaners, and I guess he must think they're art to a certain extent.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that collect vacuum cleaners.
Tramps in stereo, tramps in stereo, tramps in stereo, tramps in stereo.
You live in a little small town down south or a city down south, you're going to probably go to church to meet people. Everything's around the church. That's where my dad told me one time, that's where you get pussy to church. So, where the women are.
What? Exactly. I mean,
I think he said that it represents the rape of mankind by technology and the media.
whatever. Oh, sure.
Okay.
That's deep.
I can't lose this painting. I've lost a lot of them. I just haven't told people,
What do you do with the ones you lose?
Just shut my mouth and people don't notice.
Throw down, nobody needs to keep pounding on the wall, man, and something's gonna bleed and carry all enough to put me on the fastest train out of town. Oh, it's a blessing in a way, I guess, to know how hard you get when I'm down.
I don't want to say it on the camera. I'll sit here and tell you my political intrigues on this thing here. Get out of your mind.
Can you say without?
I shouldn't have told you in the first place. Suzanne's the best. She's the best. There's nothing like her. She's extremely intelligent, talented, tolerant, a progressive woman. I'm her minion. Gee, it's incredible how deeply involved you are in my world.
You don't understand that, like, all these people that like your work want to know all these weird things.
How many people do you think are out there?
We don't know.
That's right, you don't.
And drown and carry all the only girl that all the other boys ever loved. Tell you about walking around like you were handed down to us from heaven above. I love the way you bury anything you don't believe in. Keeps it short and keeps it sweet. And I love it when a chorus goes.
I think Robert's really good.
Wanna be, but carry on making a big mistake. Time I made my getaway. So thank you for raining on my parade. Time I made my getaway.
End of story.